Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown,
the unofficial sumo podcast
for official sumo fans.
Welcome to Grand Sumo Breakdown. This is Ryan.
Sorry,
Jake was not ready.
This is Jake. I'm also here, but I didn't expect you to pull the trigger that quick, and I was getting another sip of soup.
Well, we're going with it. This is the take. They don't call me One Take Ryan for nothing.
Tell that to our 3-hour-long rap session that I was able to coax a couple rhythmically competent lines out of you.
One Take Ryan. That's all anybody ever needs to know. Now, this is our preview or our prediction for the November Banzuke. Can't call it Kyushu because it's not going to be over in Fukuoka this year. It's just going to be once again in the Koguki-Con in Tokyo. So just the November Basho. And I want to give another shout out real quick to Sumo Kaboom because as we mentioned on the recap episode, we had won their bingo, and more specifically, I won their bingo, and the reward for that was some big jam, which I got that jam yesterday, and I don't know whether it was Lori or Leslie who made it. I'm pretty sure it was homemade by one of them, but it is absolutely fantastic. Just been basic and put it on a couple of like Ritz crackers. That was good, but then wife and I also had like grilled turkey sandwiches. So I had turkey, mayo, like Gouda cheese, and then like a thin spreading of that fig jam and grilled it up. And that was really good.
Sorry, I figured I had more time again. You were just on a train, so I went for some soup.
Nope, understandable. This is now a food podcast, apparently.
Yep, I'm doing the most highly recommended thing that anybody who does podcasting would recommend, and that's eating while you are podcasting.
Well, I'm not the one who incorrectly read what time we were starting, so you were in the middle of supper when it was time to podcast.
I was on time for how I read your text message.
All right, we're spending too much time not talking about Banzuke stuff, so I'm going to change that, and we're going to start with our Yokozuna, as always, who, since neither one of them decided to show up for the last one, there's going to be no change in rank because they did not participate. Why would you change the rank? Unless the Banzuke committee's feeling spicy for some reason, but I don't feel like they're ever that kind of spicy.
Yeah, I think they should list these guys below the Ozeki this time around.
Could you imagine the outrage if like Hakuho was ahead of Kakuryu for Aki, and obviously neither one of them did anything, and not that it matters, but what if they just decided to put Kakuryu over Hakuho? What do you like? Hakuho probably would quit on the spot.
Yeah, it would be a gigantic scandal. Brows would be furrowed, panties would be twisted, and nothing would matter. Like
exactly,
it's fine. Whatever. If you want to be treated right, maybe wrestle now and then. Which is like completely ironic, and just the way that our podcast always goes, where we have like complete recency bias, considering Hakuho is only 2 Basho ago had won.
Yeah,
but recency bias
a little longer for Kakuryu.
Recency bias is our podcast middle name, so you know what? Those guys suck. They were never any good, anyways.
That's how I've always thought of them. Let's move on to the Ozeki, clearly the best rikishi in all of sumo wrestling, bar none. Our top-ranked Ozeki, East 1, is going to be Takakeisho, as he had the best record among the Ozeki that were Ozeki the previous Basho, and Asanoyama will be West 1, and joining them at the Ozeki rank, bolstering it up to 3 Ozeki for the first time in about a year, I'm guessing. We have Shoudai, who will be East 2. Now, he did have a better record than both of these Ozeki, but as Shoudai is a Shin Ozeki, a new Ozeki, he will be the lowest ranked Ozeki, regardless of record.
Yeah, and that's where Fleric was going to put him anyways.
Lowest ranked wherever he could feasibly do it. Yep.
Exactly.
At Sekiwake, despite my eternal disappointment in him, Mitake Yumi will be the top ranked Sekiwake, sliding over from the west side to the east side as he had a winning record. And then joining him on the west side, not really a contest. I'm pretty sure that's going to be Takanosho jumping up from Maegashira 1 West to Sekiwake West with a 10-5 record. It will be, no matter what, his first basho in the Sanyaku ranks. And if he's not ranked at Sekiwake, I will riot.
Is there anybody? I mean, the way that you're saying that makes it sound like there's a possibility of someone else. Who would it be if it wasn't?
There really isn't. I'm just saying that because saying it like that because it's a prediction, and I don't want to make it sound like fact. But no, Takanosho is going to be the Sekiwake. There is no competition.
Got it. Okay.
And we will not have 3 Sekiwake as we did in the Aki Basho. There will only be 2, as there was a special case for Daisho made to open that rank up for him. We also have a mistake that was, but since there's nobody pushing Takanosho for that second Sekiwake rank, they're certainly not going to open up a 3rd spot for any other guys like Takada Fuji or Takayasu or Waka Takakage or anything like that. Nobody has earned the honor and privilege of opening up a 3rd Sekiwake slot. Moving on to Komosubi, we will have on the east side Teruno Fuji getting an 8-7 record for Maegashira 1. That once again, that's the easy choice for that one. There's not really a controversy there. Our first kind of semi-difficult decision we have to make is our West Komosubi. So by math, the spot for West Komosubi would go to Takayasu, and that's just once again, he had a 10-5 record. So you subtract the 5 from the 10, that gives us a 5. You expect a 5 rank jump for him, and he's from M6, so that'd get him to M1. By math, there's nobody that really deserves that Komosubi rank. It'd be pulling him a little bit higher. Or it could be Wakataka Kage, 11-4 from M8. That would be the same jump up 7 spots to M1. By preference of being in the joy for the entire basho, I could also see Kiribayama sneaking up in there because he had a 9-6 from Maegashira 5. But he deserves to be a full rank lower than both those guys. He should be at Maegashira 2. So I'm going to go with Takayasu here, as one of Wakataka Kage's wins was a Fusen win. And so that would get him the same amount of wins as Takayasu in an actual wrestling match. And kind of similar to what I think happened with Teruno Fuji in the previous basho, where he vaulted all the way up from M17 to M1 after his Yusho win, when we didn't see Tokushoryu get that same treatment. I think maybe the former Ozeki get a little bit of preferential treatment when it comes to the Banzuke based off of one data point.
Yeah, 1 out of 1 so far.
So that I'm going to kind of use that as my reasoning for Takayasu getting that Komosubi spot over Wakataka Kage and Kiribayama there. So we move on to our M1 rank. And so if they were in contention for that Komosubi spot, obviously it's going to be Kiribayama and Wakataka Kage for the Maegashira 1 rank. It's a close call between those two for who is going to be the East Rikishi and who will be on the West side. Once again, East being just slightly above the person on the West side. But I want to give the edge to Wakataka Kage here, but once again, that kind of Fusen win is coming into play in my decision. And also Kiribayama he was effectively in the joy this tournament. Before the tournament started and we didn't know who was going to be pulling out, he would have missed the cutoff for being in the top 16 Rikishi. But since both Yokozuna pulled out, that moved Kiribayama into the joy, and he did face both Ozeki, or at least one Ozeki, all 3 Sekiwake, maybe a Komosubi in there. He faced most of a Sanyaku schedule despite his absences. So because of that, I'm going to give Kiribayama just a slight edge over Wakataka Kage here to take the East Maegashira 1 spot, because we've talked about it before, and it's going to be a big player in my prediction this time, but the bias that we see for the Rikishi that were in the joy the previous basho, I think they get quite a bit of preferential treatment. So that's going to shade quite a few of my decisions on this Banzuke.
Pretty remarkable that we have Takanosho, Kiribayama, and Wakataka Kage all in Maegashira 1 or above. Three of the newest guys to the division, and yet now they're in the top 10.
Yeah, Takanosho, his current stint is less than a year in the Makuuchi division. He did have like one brief stay at Makuuchi for like 1 or 2 basho before he was moved down to Juryo and then came back for this stint. But yeah, all 3 of these guys at like Maegashira 1 and a Sekiwake have effectively been in Makuuchi for a year or less.
Pretty crazy.
So Maegashira 2 on the east side. Just starting at Maegashira 2, we're running into a kind of a similar problem to the previous Basho, where we had quite a few guys in the Joy have losing records. And so there's just a lot of spots that we have to fill with people being pushed down the Banzuke. And really what's going on is nobody deserves to be ranked Maegashira 2 or Maegashira 3 based on the math. And so we have to start pulling up Rikishi from further down. Like we're going to be putting Onosho and Daisho here. Those guys deserve to be, I think, like Maegashira 4 or 5 based on like the math, but we have to pull them up to Maegashira 2 because nobody else can really go there. So it's just very similar to what happened last time. So Onosho, I got him as Maegashira 2 East. Like so many 10-5 Rikishi that got a 7 rank jump from the July tournament to the Aki tournament. I think Onosho is going to get that same 7 rank jump from Maegashira 9 to Maegashira 2. And then Maegashira 2 West, I already spoiled it and said Daisho, but the pickings are very slim. We could pull up somebody like Tobizaru, who did really good, 11-4, or Kodo Shoho, who went 10-5 from Maegashira 12. But we're just going to drop off Daisho from Sekiwake to Maegashira 2. It's just a total drop of 3 ranks. We saw even smaller drops from the previous Banzuke, so not at all outside the realm of possibilities, obviously. And I'm also going to give the nod to Daisho over Kageyaki, because Kageyaki is another guy who come into here. Maegashira 6 with an 8-7 record. He's basically only fighting for that spot because he's the next guy with a winning record that we haven't already placed.
Slim pickings, holy cow.
Yeah. So we're going with Daisho there. He was in the Sanyaku ranks. They tend to not drop as far typically. So yeah, you might expect a little bit further drop for Daisho 5 and 10, but I have him slotted in at Maegashira 2 for the next tournament. Then we go on to Maegashira 3, and that is where we're going to put that Kageyaki jumping up 3 ranks after his 8-7 record. He should be in prime position, should they show up, to have an opportunity at a Kinboshi and be expunged from our shame list from every single tournament. And then we will also, I'm going to put Hokuto Fuji at Maegashira 3 West. He had a 6-9 record from Maegashira 2, so he's only dropping 1 numbered rank. But I mean, it's just kind of the situation. Once again, it'd be a very large jump for somebody like Tobizaru or Kodo Shoho. Like, this would be 11 rank jump for an 11-4 Tobizaru, and I don't think that he's going to get that. And Hokuto Fuji is going to get the preferential treatment of being in the Joy, I believe. So just a 1 rank drop for Hokuto Fuji after a 6-9 record. And then when we move on to Maegashira 4 on the east side, I've got Mio Gyudyu, and it's pretty much the same exact story as Hokuto Fuji. He had a 6-9 record from M3. I just got him dropping down 1 rank to M4. And so that, as long as everybody shows up, that will be the Joy. Those are the top 16 wrestlers who you all kind of expect to face each other, or at least the Maegashira will face the Yokozuna. So we're going to start our mid Maegashira ranks with Maegashira 4 on the west side, and I've got Okino Umi dropping there. So at this point, we're pulling from a pool of Rikishi that mathematically deserved to be ranked Maegashira 7.
But instead they're pulled up into the anti-Joy, the guys that we know are going to end up in the Joy because like 11 people above them are going to drop out.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, we're going to be pulling from a pool of guys that deserve to be ranked M7, but there are 5 of those guys. And so obviously only 2 can go to a rank. So that is going to help. Once we get through those guys, that is going to really help clear up kind of pulling people up too far or not dropping them far enough. We just kind of have to figure out which order those 5 guys are going to go in. And so as I mentioned, I'm going to go with Okino Umi first because the other 4 guys that he's competing with that deserve to be ranked Maegashira 7 are Tamawashi, Tochinoshin, who both had losing records in the Joy, and then Kodo Shoho and Tobizaru, who had really good records, but double-digit Maegashiras. So I'm giving Okinoumi the nod here because despite him having the worst record out of all 5 of these guys, he was the only one that was in the Sanyaku ranks, which, like I said, with Daisho tends to help soften the blow of their fall down the Banzuke. So I've got Okinoumi slotted in at Maegashira 4 West, and that's only a 4 rank drop after a 4-11 record, but I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility whatsoever. Because otherwise I would have to put like Tamawashi there, and that's just dropping 2 ranks after a 5-10 record. So I think Okinoumi will get preferential treatment there a little bit. I can't drop Tochinoshin to Maegashira 4 West because that's what he was last time, and he had a 6-9 record, so he can't go there. I could pull up like Tobizaru, but I don't think he's getting a 10 rank jump ahead of all these other Joy guys. I just think they're going to put Tobizaru and Koto Shoho after everybody in the Joy is kind of my thought. Maybe if he got 12 wins, but not for 11.
Yeah, it looks like there's a lot of these guys, a lot of these veterans who crap the bed up near the top are getting pretty lucky.
Yeah. Maegashira 5 on the east side, I am going to have Tamawashi dropping here, so dropping only 3 ranks after his 5-10 record. And then I am going to go with Tochinoshin, dropping just 1 rank, similar to Hokuto Fuji and Miyokiryu, after a 6-9 record. Everybody just getting preferential treatment because they were in the Joy. So at Maegashira 6 on the east side, I am going to have Takada Fuji. So Takada Fuji, this is a guy who deserved to be, by the math, deserved to be ranked ahead of Tochinoshin, ahead of Tamawashi, ahead of Okinoumi. But he was at Maegashira 5 with a 7-8 record, which would only, you would say, get a drop down to Maegashira 6. So he couldn't be ranked ahead of all those guys because we've been pulling him up, and you can't do that. So I've just got him dropping down 1/2 rank from Maegashira 5 West to Maegashira 6 East. And then at Maegashira 6 West, that is where I have Tobizaru finally ending up. It's going to be an 8 rank jump for him there. I just kind of did a little bit of research to see if there's a pattern for guys that get 11 wins in like their first tournament. Maybe they don't promote them as far as they would promote somebody else who got 11 wins, and pretty much no, there's no correlation to that. But yeah, an 8 rank jump after an 11-4 record, that's not at all outside the realm of, in fact, that's likely where he would end up. So we're going to go with him at Maegashira 6 West, hopefully learning a little bit from the previous Banzuke where I had, especially like Wakataka Kage, I had pulled him up too far after having a similar record from a similar rank. And so kind of tempering the expectations with Tobizaru here, dropping him a little bit further down the Banzuke than maybe some others might expect. So
this one, it looks like it sounds like you kind of explained your reasoning there, but I was kind of curious because this one seems like it could easily be those two guys switched. They seem like they're both in pretty much landing at the same spot. But yeah, it sounds like you're thinking you're reacting to your previous over promotion of somebody. So that's kind of why you're hedging Tobizaru just under Takada Fuji.
Yeah, and Takada Fuji did face off against an Ozeki and 2 Sekiwake, so he did have a little bit of the Sanyaku ranks there, which I think could get him a little bit of that bias as well. I mean, I was playing around with Tobizaru as high as like M4, where we have Okinoumi. It's really going to be up to the Banzuke committee on, are they going to be consistent with how they were in the previous tournament, which I'm probably expecting too much of them to be consistent between 2 Basho. And so this is going to be completely wrong, even though it's in line with the thinking we had last time. So maybe Tobizaru does go as high as like Maegashira 4 West, where Okinoumi is, and everybody else gets slotted down like 1 more rank. But if they're consistent from Basho to Basho with how they did it last time, I feel good. I feel better than I did with the last one with Tobizaru going there. But honestly, Tobizaru, he could fall even as, or get just as small of a bump up to Maegashira 7, because I could easily see like Terutsu Yoshi also kind of being ahead of him, because he's also a guy in the Joy with a 5-10 record. But mathematically Tobizaru deserves to be one rank ahead of him at Maegashira 7 instead of Maegashira 8. So that's why I don't have Terutsu Yoshi in front of Tobizaru. I just placed Tobizaru behind everybody else that was in the Joy that deserves to be the same rank as him.
Fair enough. But yeah, I think the last Banzuke that everyone kind of agrees was like a haphazard drunken Banzuke.
Yeah.
It'll be really weird to see, or I'm super interested to see, are they going to go back to what everyone views as like traditional stuff, or is this, or is some of the wonkiness that we saw last time the new normal?
Yeah, we'll find out. Hopefully it's the new normal and I get this one right. And if it's not, then I'll be off by quite a few people.
Quit forever.
Well, it depends on how good Mac's computer did. If he nails it and I didn't, then yeah, I'll quit forever. So we'll move on to Maegashira 7, where on the east side I do have Terutsu Yoshi, and on the west side I have Koto Shoho. So once again, this is another situation where by the math, Terutsu Yoshi should be ahead of Koto Shoho, and maybe it'll be Koto Shoho on the east side and Terutsu Yoshi on the west side. I'm going to keep Terutsu Yoshi ahead of him just because of our favorite phrase, joy bias. But we should be done with everybody, I think, except for Takayama, who is in the Joy. So we can stop. Well, no, we got Endo coming up as well. There's still a couple of more people that have joy bias built in to their ranking. So we're not done with that phrase yet. So let's move on to Maegashira 8. We're on the east side. We have Endo. This is another guy I'm kind of worried about. I could see him, maybe even him, bumping down Koto Shoho to Maegashira 8. Actually, no, I can't really see that because that'd be only a 4-rank jump after 10 and 5, and they tend to be nice to those guys, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. But I feel like it's a big drop. Even though he had a 3-12 record, I always feel like my stomach turning in knots when I drop somebody who's in the Sanyaku ranks down to like Maegashira 6, 7 or below, and I got him going at Maegashira 8. So I could see them finding a way to move Endo up a little bit further. I'm just not able to find that in my heart, so we'll see what they do with him. And then we're going to have Aoyama, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, Aoyama is where the math and where the Rikishi are going to end up finally line up on this Banzuke. So Aoyama had a 7 and 8 record from the Maegashira 7 rank last time. You would expect a drop of 1. Everything works out for this one where we can drop him 1 rank. So moving on to Maegashira 9. Once again, this is just a simple math projection. We have a couple of guys that deserve to be ranked Maegashira 9 and Koto Eiko on the east side and Tokushoryu on the west side. There's nobody else that we haven't already placed that deserves to be at Maegashira 9, so this is a fairly easy prediction for us. And the same thing for Maegashira 10. On the east side, I've got Meisei. On the west side, I have Ryuden. Both of them deserve to be ranked Maegashira 10. And with these mathematical ones, when we're not dealing with anybody that is in the Joy, I'm just putting the guy who had the better record on the east side and the guy who had the worst record on the west side.
I was going to ask because, yeah, a couple of them looked like they could go either way, but they both deserve to be right in that same area.
Yeah, okay. I haven't gotten that down to an exact science yet. I think I'm getting closer on figuring out like who's necessarily going to be on the east side, who's going to be on the west side. Still working on that, but right now I'm going to lean towards the guy who had the better record and deserves to be the same rank as somebody else is going to be ranked higher than them.
Fair enough.
And so Maegashira 11, here is where we will finally end our joy bias. And that is with the east side, Takayama. So the math starts to fail us again, starting at this rank. There's nobody. Well, okay. Sadano Umi, who is our West Rikishi, he deserves to be really, Jake.
You had the wrong there in the outline. I'm not going to leave it.
It doesn't even matter. Nobody's going to see this.
I see it.
All right, whatever. So by the math, Sada no Umi deserves to be ranked Maegashira 11, and I have him on the west side, dropping 1 rank after his 7-8 record from Maegashira 10. But kind of taking a minor risk with Takayama here. So I got a little spooked with Onosho only having a 7 rank drop in the previous Basho after a 2-13 record, where he was in the Joy. And what really spooks me about that is he ended up ranked ahead of 4 guys in Enho, Chiyotai Ryu, Sada no Umi, and Kota Waco, who all deserve to be mathematically ranked 2 ranks ahead of Onosho in the tournament. So it wasn't even him jumping over guys that deserve to be 1 rank ahead of him, 2 ranks ahead of him. And so I kind of taken a risk with Takayama here. I think they're going to temper his fall a little bit, drop him only down to Maegashira 11, and jump him in front of Enho, who by the math should be ranked ahead of Takayama in this situation. So this is one of the very first times where I'm kind of just like using my judgment to go against the math. Just using the precedent of what they did last time, hoping to get a little bit better results than my prediction from last time. So if Takayama ends up at Maegashira 12 and Enho takes the spot at Maegashira 11, I won't be shocked. That's how I initially had this set up, but I do think based on what they did with Onosho last time, another 7 rank drop for a 2-13 Rikishi that was in the Joy. So if we go down to Maegashira 12, I will have Enho here and also have Kaisei. So Enho actually ends up being ranked according to the math, and Kaisei, we're going to keep him at his same rank he had the previous Basho. So he was Maegashira 12 West last time, had a 7-8 record. But because the next Rikishi that need to be ranked, there's nobody that deserves to be ranked Maegashira 13 or Maegashira 14. So since we have to pull up somebody that doesn't really deserve to be ranked this high, I'm just going to leave Kaisei here as a little bit of a stopgap to stop that bleeding a little bit.
Kaisei could stop a lot of things.
Oh yeah, he's the perfect. If I had to choose a Rikishi to plug a hole in something, it would be Kaisei.
Yeah.
So moving on to Maegashira 13 on the east side. I got Hoshoryu going here, and on the west side, I've got Ichinojo. These are our last 2 Makuuchi Rikishi that had winning records that we can pull up. So Hoshoryu is going to be moving up 3 after an 8-7 record, and I have Ichinojo moving up 4 ranks after an 8-7 record. So everybody after this is either going to be a little bit of a I can't think of the right word, but a nice jump from Juryo. Or somebody that isn't really dropping as far as they should in the Makuuchi division. And something I forgot to mention at the top of this episode. So this, because of the large amount of injuries that we had and suspensions, there's only 17 Rikishi with winning records in this tournament and 25 with a losing record. And typically it's a lot closer to that, like, even point of like 21-21 with winning records and losing records, or like 22-20 with losing records and winning records. So to have it be like 17-25 is our gap of winning records to losing records. That kind of also makes it a little bit tricky in how we're going to be placing people on this Banzuke. And that's starting to, you're really going to see it at the bottom of the Banzuke. So you saw it at the top where we had to pull people up because there weren't enough people with winning records to go up top. And now where we're seeing people that had bad records that got kicked out, now we're struggling to find people. Okay, who's going to take their place? We got to dig deeper into Juryo than maybe we typically would have to find people to take their spots.
So you're saying it's going to get weird? It's
going to get weird, yeah. So starting at Maegashira 14, I've got Chiyo no Kuni going here. And so this is going to be a massive jump for him after his 14-1 record from Juryo 11. But because it's a weak class of Juryo promotees, it still makes him mathematically the most likely Juryo Rikishi to have the highest Makuuchi rank in November. So the next closest guy that has a chance would be like Koto Nowaka, who was 9-6 from Juryo 2. But even if we just did it by the math, Chiyo no Kuni, despite being at Juryo 11, because he had that 14-1 record, would still deserve to be ranked ahead of Koto Nowaka. So we'll see how that plays out. I wonder if Chiyo no Kuni will actually be the highest ranked guy coming up from Juryo, or maybe Koto Nowaka can take that from him. But I'm going to go with Chiyo no Kuni as the top Juryo promotee.
We got a front runner for who I think is probably going to be your furthest off. But yeah, keep going.
So, well, I mean, that might not be a good thing for you to do, because Chiyo no Kuni is either going to be like Maegashira 14 or 15.
It's always a crapshoot for me, because you give me your reasoning every time, and it's honestly rather persuasive. So I do have a lot of trouble making that pick, and since there's no repercussions for it, I might as well pick something so that we can talk about it more.
That's fair. And then joining Chiyo no Kuni at Maegashira 14, I have his stablemate Chiyo Tairyu dropping only 3 ranks after a 5 and 10 performance from Maegashira 11. So when we go to Maegashira 15, this is the other guy who I think has a chance to be the top rank guy coming from Juryo, Koto Nowaka on the east side. And he is going to be joined, I believe, by his stablemate, Koto Yuki, who had an 8 and 7 record from the Juryo 2 rank. So all 3 of these guys, those are obvious. Well, Chiyo no Kuni might not be an obvious shoe-in for promotion, but I mean, Takada Fuji jumped up 17 ranks after a 13 and 2 performance. I think Chiyo no Kuni can manage the at least 11 to make it up into the Makuuchi division after a 14 and 1 record. So I think all 3 of those guys are shoe-ins and would be in any Banzuke that you had to make it up to the Makuuchi division. It's the final few guys that we're going to kind of have to figure out where we're pulling them from. So Maegashira 16 on the east side, I've got Shima no Umi landing there, dropping just 1 rank after his 6 and 9 record. He could possibly end up at Maegashira 17 or something like that. It's the bottom of the Banzuke. Who knows what the hell they're going to do. And then on the west side, I'm predicting the triumphant return of Nega Arawashi, Chiyo Shoma himself, the bad boy of sumo wrestling. So there's a few guys like Chiyo Shoma, Koto Yuki, and spoiler alert, our last guy that I have coming up to Juryo, Aqua, who all had like the same math. They all should be ranked the same based on the math, which is at Juryo 1 is where they should end up based on the math. And so I had to figure out, okay, which one is going to go in front of the others. And it could either go by record, which would make like Aqua at Maegashira 15 West, and Chiyo Shoma would still be at Maegashira 16 West, and Koto Yuki then Maegashira 17 East, which is where I have Aqua going. But I don't know. I feel like it's just going to go based on whoever had the highest rank is going to get the preferential treatment of the other guys. So that's why I have Koto Yuki going at Maegashira 15 West, Chiyo Shoma at Maegashira 16 West, and Aqua at Maegashira 17 East. Because I don't see them pulling up Aqua from Juryo 6 with a 10 and 5 record all the way up to Maegashira 15. That would be like an 8 rank jump, I think, off the top of my head. So I don't think they're going to do that. I think like a 3 or 4 rank jump for Koto Yuki after the 8 and 7 is more likely. So that is how it stands. I think Chiyo Shoma getting a 4 or 5 rank jump with that his 9 and 6 record, and Aqua getting a 6 or 7 rank jump after his 10 and 5. I think those are kind of the guys who are a little bit lucky this time that I believe they will end up in Juryo in the coming Basho. So if we have 5 guys going up to Makuuchi, that means we have 5 guys who will be going down to Juryo. I believe that will be Koto Shogiku, Ishiura, Abi, Shohozan, and Kyoku Taisei. It's an absolute shoe-in for Koto Shogiku, Abi, and Kyoku Taisei. Those are obvious. And then Shohozan and Ishiura, those are all a little...
Shohozan seems like a lock for me. There's only 3 guys below him, and you got a 5 and 10.
Yeah, they could do some weird stuff, though. I'm predicting him to go down, but it's not outside the realm of possibilities where they do some weird stuff and keep like Shohozan and Ishiura and keep Chiyoshoma and Aqua down. I don't think they are, but there is a dimension where that is happening.
Gotcha. Fair enough.
All right, Jake. So are you going to go with Chiyo no Kuni blasting all the way up from Juryo 11 to Maegashira 14 as your prediction for my worst guess?
Honestly, I forgot about that because you said 5 guys like 3 times in quick succession. And I'm just now realizing that my dinner was too small and I want fast food. I'm not going to. I have the willpower not to. But
there you go.
But I got locked on that for a minute. So yeah, I think Chiyo no Kuni coming up that far is, I don't know. It just it seems like a huge promotion, especially. I don't know. I do agree with you though. If he's projected a give or take 13 rank jump, that would put him right in that neighborhood. But yeah, it seems crazy. I just really wish that this off season between Basho would seem a lot more. We'd have more to talk about if they talked about if they released the crossover the way they do with new Sekitori.
Oh yeah.
Like guys that come up from Makushita into Juryo, they announce that right away because they have new responsibilities that they have to add once they're a Juryo wrestler. But because other than prestige, Juryo and Makuuchi, there isn't like a huge difference in like what responsibilities you have. They just leave us guessing. And it's the last few Banzukes, it's felt like that's been the most suspenseful piece of it to wait for. Because a lot of the guys up at the top, whether they're in a certain order or not, they'll still probably face most of the same guys that we're expecting them to. But Chiyo no Kuni, if he's at Juryo 1 versus in the top division, that's a massive difference in competition for him. So yeah, that I like I mentioned before, I think why don't I have this be my pick so we can talk about it more. But what if he does get all the way up to Maegashira 14, what are you expecting from him? Do you think that this is do you expect him to do similar to Terano Fuji's rocketing back towards the top, or do you think that this is an over promotion for where he's at and he's going to get kicked back down?
I don't think it's necessarily an over promotion for where he's at. I mean, this is a guy who's won the Juryo Yusho 3 times. He deserves to be up in these ranks. It's just because of injury that he got knocked down. It wasn't because of poor performance. I mean, he was like Maegashira 13 or 14 when he got that injury at first, I think. But no, this is a guy we've seen up in the Joy before. So, and he's obviously healthy and on fire right now. So I don't think he's going to be Terano Fuji and come out and win the Yusho. But I think 9-10 wins would not be outside the realm of possibility at all for Chiyo no Kuni.
Yeah. It's kind of weird that he got the promotions that he did. Because it was the beginning of 2019, Maegashira 15. He started off hot and then got injured, sat out for 6 months here, then came back mid Makushita. And what's weird is he did great his very, very first Basho back. He went 7-0, but then he had 3 consecutive 3 and 4s. And
yeah, I wonder if he re-aggravated that injury or something.
It's something like that, but maybe not like serious enough to sit him out. Because then he went 7-0 from Makushita 12, which put him at Juryo 11, and he went 14-0 and crushed that again. And now he's probably back in the top division. That it's crazy to me because Terano Fuji was dominant all the way back up. So yeah, I don't know. Whether I think this is in the right spot on the Banzuke, I feel like it's in the right neighborhood, but it's one of those where it's really hard to predict. Like there's like a 2 or 3 rank gap where it would still feel like it could be the spot that he's supposed to be. But if I were predicting it, I mean, like I said, your reasoning's very persuasive, but it's the one that doesn't sit right for me, and I'm kind of expecting him to be a rank or 2 below that.
Yeah, I have 4 names kind of floating around where I think they're wild cards, and it's typically going to be your guys with the extreme records. Just how far up do they want to move them up or down? So Oki no Umi only dropping 4 ranks at the 4 and 11 bothers me.
Takayama, Endo.
Takayama dropping only 7 ranks with the 4 and 11. Endo dropping 8 ranks with the 3 and 12. I'm nervous about dropping somebody as far as they should. And then Tobizaru, how high will he go? Will he go up to Maegashira 3 or 4? Will they drop him only to like Maegashira 7 or something like that? So I think Tobizaro has like the biggest range of possibilities. Everybody else, I would be surprised if I was off by more than a full rank, but those 4 guys I could see being off by more than a full rank.
Gotcha. Well, I don't appreciate you stepping on my toes because this is supposed to be my prediction for your worst pick, but I'll let it slide this time.
I don't know which one of those guys to choose. Yeah, I would say Tobizaro, but I kind of put him right in the middle. So pretty good at hedging the bets there.
So you're not anticipating that to be correct, but you're also not anticipating it to be very far off.
I mean, I am anticipating that to be correct. I every single time I finish my Banzuke, I'm like, how is that not going to be what comes out when they release it?
Sure.
but still, just because that's like a 30% chance of where he'll land, where versus like 25% for another option and 20% for another option, and then 2 other options with 10%. Don't do the math. I don't know how much that added up to, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. Yeah, it looks like another one where you, I
and
think
then 5% for one more. I think I made it up to 95%.
Yeah, everybody else already moved on. I think it's it's another one where the Sanyaku as a whole is pretty much a lock. The zone of death is going to get real weird. I'm imagining there's going to be a bunch of guys in that area that are just 1 or 2 ranks off, or like slots off, half ranks or however you would score it.
Yeah.
But then, these Jurio guys at the bottom seem kind of wonky to me. But obviously, you've been doing this long enough and you've scored well enough that I shouldn't doubt you. But I do. I still do.
Yeah, and I mean, like my last one where like I didn't do good. I only missed 3 guys by more than a full rank, and even then, it was just a half rank more than a full rank. Everybody else was within 1 rank or a half rank of their spot or a perfect prediction, but there are just so many of those guys that I was off by. So this time I'm hoping to kind of lower the amount of kind of guys that are just off by a little bit, where I got only like 17 perfect guesses, and move it back into the range of like 24, mid to upper 20s for perfect guesses, which I have been in the past. So
sure. As much as I'm hedging on where I think the Jurio promotees are going to land. Yeah, I mean, the more I'm thinking about it, the more confident and hungry I am that 5 guys is the right number to switch between the 2 divisions.
Yeah. No, I feel pretty good with the Jurio Makuuchi exchange. Last time it was tough, and I thought it was going to be good, and they went even crazier than what I thought. But Shima no Umi is like a borderline case of could go down to Jurio, but he's like the only guy. Last time I kept not Ishiura, but Ikioi in the Makuuchi division in my prediction. He had a record that deserved going down to Jurio without a doubt, but I kept him in there because I didn't think they were going to pull up a 9-6 Ichinojo to take his spot.
Right.
So could they do the same thing with Shima? I mean, could they do the same thing with Shima no Umi? Drop him 3 ranks after his 6 and 9, put him at like Jurio 1, and pull up a 9-6 Chiyo no O from Jurio 6? It's possible. I don't.
Ooh, that would be a big jump for him too. Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, that's the same jump that Ichinojo got last time.
Yeah.
Or Hoshoryu, whichever one of those guys was ranked lower. One of those guys made it up from Jurio 6 with a 9-6 record. So
Right. Okay, I gotcha.
So it's, once again, it's not outside the realm of possibilities that we get 6, but I feel good at 5. But then again, I felt good at 5 last time.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think I guess now that we're reaching the end, I think I've kind of changed my mind on what I'm most anticipating, and that is I want to see how Mac's formula compares, because that's something that we haven't talked about yet. I want to see how much his formula decides these guys are going to get their promotions and those big drops. Because his formula that he uses takes into account more recent data, because he hasn't been doing this as long as you. So maybe if the new crazy drunken Shimpan guy that's deciding all this, Banzuke committee guy that's deciding all this, if that's the new guy, then maybe Mac has the edge, just with more recent data. But I don't know. Either way, we'll see where his stuff comes out, and he's going to join us for the recap of the Banzuke once it's released, right?
Yep, and we will know the answers to all of our questions on October 26th when the Banzuke is released for the Basho. That will be starting on November 8th. Once again, it will be held in the Kokuki-Con in Tokyo as opposed to in Fukuoka as it typically does in November. So if you enjoyed this podcast, you can leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast listening service. I did venture over to Apple Podcasts earlier today and saw our latest 5-star review that we got. They gave us a 5-star review because we had no racism in our rap. So good on us for not being racist.
Oh man, I worked hard to edit that out of Fleric's rap, so I'm glad to see that our effort.
Your work is being recognized.
I made it. But yeah, speaking of editing, as long as we're already in the middle of our stinking recap thing at the end of it here, I'm gonna start seeing if Matt can help me out on editing, just because since lockdown and stuff, we've been doing things through a different, more timely process to edit. So it's taken up a lot of my time. So I'm just throwing that out there. So if anything goes wrong in any editing coming up, that must have been an episode. It must have been one that Mac did, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I'll give him crap next time that we're going to toss one his way. But I don't know how intently he will take the racism out of everything that Fleric says, but hopefully he does a comparable job to what we've done so far.
If we want to remain a podcast, then hopefully he does just as good as you. Also, I do feel like, because we're hammering it pretty hard, and Fleric is not racist. We don't actually edit out any racist things. Don't hate Fleric. Fleric is literally the nicest, most pure person I know in this world. God, except for the racism.
every episode where we make this joke more than once, you gotta just follow it up and explain the joke and make sure that everybody laughs.
Because it's gonna get to a point where we just say, "Oh yeah, Fleric's racist," as like,
and then
a
we
joke,
all laugh about it,
and then we assume that like people have been listening to us for long enough and they know the origin of the joke, which shouldn't even be a joke still. But then we just like let it slide, and then it's somebody's first episode. They're like, "This guy's a racist."
Wow, I didn't hear that at all. This editor must be great.
All right, just end the episode, dude.
Yeah, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, search for the name of the podcast that we are, and also grandsumobreakdown.wordpress.com for our blog, grandsumobreakdown@gmail.com, and also send us messages. We've been getting more of those recently, and we like playing them on the show, especially the hilarious attempts at Google transcribing the voicemails. With all of the sumo terminology that end up in the voicemails we get. It is always funny. Anywho, leave those voicemails at 805-613-7866. That is 805-613-SUMO.
And there's nothing left to be said, so goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Grand Sumo Breakdown. Until next time,
Throw your salt high.
and keep moving forward.